Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna. Keep it simple, stupid. Chant Hare Krishna. Depend on the Lord. Makes all the arrangements. Krishna, God, makes all the arrangements. Just keep it simple. Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Krishna! Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna, whoops, Chaitanya. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Sat is eternal feature of the Lord. Sat, eternal. Chit is knowledge feature, full knowledge. Chit. Ananda is the blissful feature, blissful. And Vigraha means form. So the full presence of the Lord is realized Sat Chidananda Vigraha. And when we say remember Krishna, that remembering means being conscious of Krishna at every moment. Never forget Krishna, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Is that purely a mental process? Or I have to remember why I went to the store to buy some beans? Or I have to try to remember your birthday when it was, so I can acknowledge your birthday somehow. Or I have to remember where I put my wallet. It's not exactly that kind of remembering. It means at every moment. It means being conscious in the present moment, Krishna conscious, feeling the presence of Sat, Chit, Ananda, Vigraha. And that's how we practice Krishna consciousness. There are 9 forms of practice. Krishna consciousness isn't karma yoga. It doesn't depend on fruitive results. Karma yoga is on the way to transcendence. Jnana yoga is on the way to transcendence. But bhakti yoga, there's 9 processes as described by the realized souls, the ones who are always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna, always accepting things favorable for Krishna consciousness and rejecting things unfavorable for Krishna consciousness, and engaging in 9 processes of devotional service. The first and foremost is hearing. Actually, of the 9 different processes of devotional service, not karma yoga, not jnana yoga, but bhakti yoga, the highest form of yoga, bhakti, a person can perform one of the 9 processes and achieve the desired goal of always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna, always being in the presence of the Lord in the present moment, in any situation, being protected by the Lord, no matter what the material situation is. So the 9 processes, a person can practice all 9 of them, or even just one. And the first and foremost is hearing. This is described in the 7th canto. Prahlad Maharaj explains the 9 processes of devotional service that are explained in that chapter, where the devotee is saved from his demonic father who tries to kill him because of Krishna. His son is a pure devotee of the Lord, and his father doesn't like that. Better to kill him. These things happen. These things happen. Krishna. Quite often in the material world, people do simply horrible things with this demonic mentality, deranged, kind of misplaced focus. So Prahlad, this is the little 5-year-old boy, he's a pure devotee of the Lord. He's fully absorbed. He's always remembering Krishna. He's never forgetting Krishna. He's a devotee of God. He's pure spirit soul. And his father doesn't like that. So in that section of the Bhagavatam where it's described what happens, how the father tries to kill the boy, and how the boy every time is protected by the Lord. It's described the 7 processes, the 9 processes of devotional service. And hearing is the foremost, hearing. Hearing the messages of Godhead, hearing. From the realized souls, from the pure devotees, hearing. And chanting is the second So hearing and chanting is very scientific, actually, because when we hear something, if we repeat it at least 3 times, then it becomes fixed. Becomes fixed in our mind. Now we're on the level of the mind. To hear something 3 times. Are you trying to memorize something? You hear it 3 times. You repeat it 3 times. You hear it, and then you repeat it 3 times, especially to others, but just to repeat it vocally, to chant, then it stays fixed. At least 3 times to repeat. The more you repeat it, the more fixed it becomes. That can work for a person and can work against them if they're hearing some things that are inciting their lesser sentiments. They're not so spiritual. They're materially contaminated ideas of themselves. That can get reinforced also, too. So it's a scientific principle. At least 3 times, if you hear something and you repeat it 3 times, it becomes very fixed. So hearing and chanting. Hearing's the first devotional process, and chanting is the second. And these are, I believe, in order of significance. And then remembering. But it's not that, where did I put my wallet, remembering kind of thing. It's at every moment feeling the presence of Sat, Chit, Ananda, Vigraha, eternity, knowledge, bliss, in the form of the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers. What do we pray? Do we pray for, I want a new car. I want a romantic partner. I want money. No. If you want those things, it's not advised necessarily to go to Krishna for those things. The demigods are there, ready, willing, and able to supply material goods. It's not even recommended to go to them for those things. It's not recommended to even ask for those things if you want to be a pure devotee. Because Krishna knows what you need, and he knows what you want, and he's supplying. So the thing to do with Krishna is to be careful what you desire, what you want, because he supplies it. He's fulfilling the desires of all living beings since time immemorial. So when we go to praying to Krishna, we have examples of great devotees who prayed to Krishna and what they prayed. Queen Kunti, her life with the Pandavas was always being challenged by their envious cousins and relatives because they were in line to inherit the kingdom, become her sons were in line to rule actually the world, emperor at the time. It's 5,000 years ago. So there was always this inimical force kind of trying to get them out so they could get in. So their life was fraught with all kinds of difficulties. Their place where they lived, their palace was burnt down, hoping that they would be killed in there. Poison was tried to be administered. So many things. There was always this evil plot surrounding them trying to. So Kunti was the mother of the Pandavas. And her prayers of Queen Kunti, she prays that let those calamities come again and again. Let them come. She doesn't even pray for release from the difficulties. She says, let them come, because then I'm forced to turn to you. I have no other shelter. So if it brings me to you, Krishna, it brings me to take shelter of you, then let them come. Other prayers are, let me suffer the reactions of my sinful activities, but just don't let me forget you, which means in the present moment, I feel your presence. And if I have some reactions, then I accept them. Not asking for, please protect me from this or that or the other thing. The prayers are asking simply to love Krishna, to be conscious of Krishna, no matter what. They're actually praying for unconditional love of the Lord. The Lord already is giving unconditional love to his part and parcel, teeny tiny jiva soul, living entity. He's already giving unconditional love. Now, the little teeny tiny spark has the opportunity to return that love unconditionally. Let me love you unconditionally. And this is the prayer, Chaitanya's Shikshastika. Let me take birth again and again. Even if you're always my worshipful Lord unconditionally, even if you handle me roughly. So we have the opportunity to engage in an unconditional loving relationship. My father told me something. My father he was pretty far out actually. I lucked out with those two, my mother and father. I really did. It was Krishna's mercy on me. I'm sure I gave them a bit of a bumpy ride, but they were. He told me one time. He said, they were married for like 75 years, through thick and thin, through everything. He said, marriage. He said it's not 50-50. He said it's 100%, 100%. That's how it works. Each one gives 100%. So that's, in terms of what we can see in this world played out on a material stage. And in the spiritual atmosphere, it's 100%, 100%. It's unconditional. The Lord's love for the living being is unconditional. It's unconditional. It's causeless, it's unconditional. And the living entity, now we, by His grace, by His mercy, by His bona fide representatives, we have the opportunity to return that love unconditionally. Let's do it! Let's go! Hare Krishna. Woo-woo! So let's hear about Krishna. If you're going to love someone, you have to kind of know what they're like, right? What's the personality of Godhead like? There's this nice little girl in the park. She must have been about 6, 7 years old. A sweet little girl. She was taking part. We were having a little kirtan, sit-down kirtan, and she learned the mantra, and she ended up leading the kirtan. And she took one of these Krishna books, and she said, she accepted that Krishna was God. She didn't have trouble with that. She liked that. But she said, "But who's the lady with Krishna? Who's the lady with Krishna?" So the lady with Krishna is the perfection of devotion. She's the embodiment of the perfection of devotion to Krishna. So she has a Krishna book. She's going to find out about the lady with Krishna. Hey, Ananga, Hare Krishna. I was just thinking about you this morning, hoping everything's going well. Hare Krishna. So you're going to read something. Hey, we need to read together again sometime when you're up for it and, you know, your house is in order, so to speak. You're not dealing with emergencies. This is the story of the Syamantaka jewel. And so we can find out a little bit about this person that we want to have an unconditional loving relationship with, who already loves us and is just waiting for us to get the message. So these activities took place 5,000 years ago. Krishna manifested on this planet, and he appeared in the royal family, the Yadu dynasty. His capital city was Dwarka, within the district of Mathura, and there was a king in that district named Satyajit, and he was a worshipper of the sun god, Vivaswan. He worshipped the demigods, he worshipped Vivaswan, and Vivaswan was very pleased with his service, and he gave him a gift, a jewel. And when he wore the jewel, he looked just like the sun god, and he would parade around Dwarka, Krishna's capital city. Krishna was the king of Dwarka, and he had his new queen, Rukmini. They hadn't had any children yet. Paduna hadn't appeared yet, but Krishna had his new queen, Rukmini, and Satyajit would go into Dwarka and parade around wearing the jewel, and everybody thought the sun god had come to visit Krishna, because they understood that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. They understood him as Lakshmi Narayan. They worshipped him in awe and reverence. They knew he wasn't an ordinary human being. They knew he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the creator and maintainer of the entire creation, both spiritual and material, beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature. They had realization of that, and they saw Krishna in that way. They also understood that Krishna liked to have some pastimes in Vrindavan, that he had some special pastimes there where he wasn't worshipped as the Supreme. They relished that, they appreciated it, but their own relationship with Krishna was in awe and reverence, although they liked to hear about the Damodar pastime, and they liked very much to hear about the activities in Vrindavan. Their own personal relationship with Krishna was in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. So when Satyajit would come to Dwarka and parade around glowing because of the jewel, looking like the sun god, they ran to Krishna and said, Krishna, the demigods have come, because the demigods would visit. The sun god is here to see you. He's in, and Krishna knew. He said, no, that's not the sun god. That's Satyajit. He's come to show off his opulence. He's making a show. It's not. And Satyajit didn't come to see Krishna. He just liked to parade around and have everybody think he was the sun god. Silly. It's kind of silly. But the jewel was a very powerful thing. And he had it installed in a temple, and he was worshiping it. And one of the things that it was very powerful, it was a very powerful benediction in the form of a jewel. There would be no disease or pestilence or famine or drought or anything like that wherever the jewel was present. And it was producing gold every day. I think 170 pounds of gold every day. So Satyajit was like, he was in heaven, right? He had it all. Krishna sent a message to him that actually that jewel should be given to Ugrasena, the grandfather of Krishna, for the benefit of everyone, not just Satyajit, because Ugrasena was the ruler of everyone. He was the top king. And it should be given to him so that everyone could benefit. Satyajit didn't want to do that. So he didn't listen to Krishna, and he kept the jewel and the gold and parading around, and he was kind of intoxicated like that. So Lord Krishna wanted to, this is the summary study of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace, E.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Krishna wanted to teach the world that the best of everything should be offered to the ruling chief of the country. King Ugrasena was the overlord of many dynasties and happened to be the grandfather of Krishna. Krishna asked Satyajit to present the Syamantaka jewel to King Ugrasena. Krishna pleaded that the best should be offered to the king, but Satyajit, being a worshipper of the demigods, had become too materialistic, and instead of accepting the request of Krishna, thought it wise to worship the jewel in order to get the 170 pounds of gold every day. Yeah, that's a tough one, you know. I mean, you're getting 170 pounds of gold a day. I mean, you don't want to give that up. Materialistic persons who can achieve such huge quantities of gold every day are not interested in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, therefore, in order to show special favor, Krishna takes away great accumulations of materialistic wealth from a person and thus makes him a great devotee. Wow. But Satyajit refused to abide by the order of Krishna and did not deliver the jewel to him. After this incident, Satyajit's younger brother, in order to display the opulence of the family, took the jewel, put it on his neck, and rode on horseback into the forest, making a show of material opulence. Look at me! While the brother of Satyajit, who was known as Prasena, was moving here and there in the forest, a big lion attacked him, killing both him and the horse on which he was riding, and took away the jewel to his cave. The news was received by the gorilla king, Jambavan, who then killed the lion in the cave and took away the jewel. Jambavan had been a great devotee of the Lord since the time of Lord Ramachandra. So he did not take the valuable jewel as something he very much needed. He gave it to his young son to play with as a toy. In the city, when Satyajit's younger brother Prasena did not return from the forest with the jewel, Satyajit became very upset. He did not know that his brother had been killed by a lion. The lion had been killed by Jambavan. He was thinking instead that because Krishna wanted the jewel and had not been delivered to him, Krishna might have therefore taken the jewel away from Prasena by force and killed him. This idea grew into a rumor which was being spread by Satyajit in every part of Dwarka. Well, since not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord, the lion and then Jambavan, and so it wasn't Krishna like directly, but do I dare say this? It was Krishna, but not directly. Krishna. So, but these are pastimes, and So sometimes Krishna is a little sneaky like that. So it wasn't Krishna, but it was Krishna. But it wasn't Krishna. Krishna. The false rumor that Krishna had killed Prasenna and taken away the jewel was spread everywhere like wildfire. Krishna did not like to be defamed in that way. Therefore, he decided he would go to the forest, find the Syamantaka jewel, taking with him some of the inhabitants of Dwarka. Along with important men of Dwarka, Krishna went to search out Prasenna, the brother of Satyajit, and found him dead, killed by the lion. At the same time, Krishna also found the lion, which had been killed by Jambavan, who is generally called by the name Riksha. It was found that the lion had been killed by the hand of Riksha without the assistance of any weapon. Krishna and the citizens of Dwarka then found in the forest a great tunnel, said to be the path of Riksha's house. Krishna knew that the inhabitants of Dwarka would be afraid to enter the tunnel. Now, Riksha's been a great devotee of Krishna for eons, since the time of Ramachandra, when Lord Ramachandra, Krishna, as he appeared in Lord Ramachandra, engaged the monkey army. So Riksha is now also in the simian class of entities, monkey, gorilla, at the time of Krishna. Krishna knew that the inhabitants of Dwarka would be afraid to enter the tunnel. Therefore, he asked them to remain outside, and he himself entered the dark tunnel alone to find Riksha, Jambavan. After entering the tunnel, Krishna saw that the very valuable jewel, known as Syamantaka, had been given to the son of Riksha as a toy. And in order to take the jewel from the child, he went there and stood before him. When the nurse, who was taking care of Riksha's child, saw Krishna standing before her, she was afraid. Thinking the valuable Syamantaka jewel might be taken away by him, she began to cry loudly, out of fear. Hearing the nurse cry, Jambavan appeared on the scene in a very angry mood. Jambavan was actually a great devotee of Lord Krishna, but because he was in an angry mood, he could not recognize his master. Lust, anger, and greed, they run parallel in the heart. So lust, it blocks the vision, anger blocks the vision, and greed blocks the vision. So we can say that Satyajit was overcome with greed. And now we hear that the devotee of the Lord, overcome with anger, can't even recognize Krishna. He's angry. He can't recognize Krishna because these things block the vision. But because he was in an angry mood, he could not recognize his master. He thought him to be an ordinary man. This brings to mind the statement of the Bhagavad Gita, in which the Lord advises Arjuna to get free from anger, greed, and lust. I love it when it happens. I didn't read that sentence, but just understanding from my own experiences, and then to see in the very next sentence, Prabhupada, validate what I already experience and know. There it is, validated. Well, I've been reading these books and studying Prabhupada for a long time, but to see it validated so quickly like that, it's really wonderful. So, Prabhupada says, this brings to mind the statement in the Bhagavad Gita, which the Lord advises Arjuna to get free from anger, greed, and lust, in order to rise up to the spiritual platform. Lust, anger, and greed run parallel in the heart and check one's progress. on the spiritual path. And it's not so easy to get free from lust, anger, and greed because they have very strong physiological things that happen. We know what happens with lust. We know that is a physiological thing. And when there's lust, you can't think of anything else. So, anger, the same thing. There are physiological things that happen in anger. Fight or flight, it's an adrenaline chemical start to run. And greed, there's a lot of fear in greed. Fear, which is also gets into the adrenaline. Greed means like I have something and I'm greedy and lusty over it and I'm afraid I'll lose it. So you get your adrenaline and then, greedy. Don't want anybody to take it away. I don't want to lose it. Like fearful. Lust, anger, and greed, they have physiological, so that's why learning how to tolerate, chanting Hare Krishna, and learning how to tolerate when these things are challenged or become activated. You chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, because they're on the external platform. They're not internal. It's not an internal experience. It's an external distraction. It's not like we don't have senses. We have senses, but they're spiritual senses. And we're learning how to tell the difference between spirit and matter. This is the great bhakti yoga practice, is to be able to tell the difference between spirit and matter. Krishna, we're practicing. Cuckoo. Yeah, right. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Not recognizing his master, Jambavan first challenged him to fight. There was a great fight between Krishna and Jambavan, in which they fought like two opposing vultures. Whenever there's an edible corpse, the vultures fight heartily over the prey. Krishna and Jambavan first of all began fighting with weapons, then with stones, then with big trees, then hand to hand, until at last they were hitting one another with their fists. And the blows were like the striking of thunderbolts. Each was expecting victory over the other, but the fighting continued for days, both in daytime and at night, without stopping. In this way, the fighting continued for 28 days. Oh my God. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Actually, it's very ecstatic fighting. It wasn't an ordinary fight. It was a kind of ecstasy. Approaching Krishna in anger. It was a kind of ecstasy. It lasted for 28 days. Although Jambavan was the strongest living entity at that time, practically all the joints of his bodily limbs became slackened and his strength reduced to practically nil after being constantly struck by the fists of Krishna. Feeling very tired, with perspiration all over his body, Jambavan was astonished. Who was this opponent who was weakening him? Jambavan was quite aware of his own superhuman bodily strength, but when he felt tired from being struck by Krishna, he could understand that Krishna was no one else but his worshipful Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This incident had a special significance for the devotees. In the beginning, Jambavan could not understand Krishna because his vision was obscured by material attachment. He was attached to his boy and to the greatly valuable Syamantaka jewel, which he did not want to spare for Krishna. In fact, when Krishna came there, he became very angry, thinking he had come to take away the jewel. This is the material position. Although one is very strong in body, that cannot help him understand Krishna. In a sporting attitude, Krishna wanted to engage in a mock fight with his devotee. As we have experienced from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, the personality of Godhead has all the propensities and instincts of a human being. Sometimes, in a sportive spirit, he wishes to fight to make a show of bodily strength. And when he so desires, he selects one of his suitable devotees to give him that pleasure. Krishna desired this pleasure of mock fighting with Jambavan. Although Jambavan was a devotee by nature, he was without knowledge of Krishna while giving service to the Lord by his bodily strength. But as soon as Krishna was pleased by the fighting, Jambavan immediately understood that his opponent was none other than the Supreme Lord himself. The conclusion is that he could understand Krishna by his service. Krishna is sometimes satisfied by fighting also. Krishna. Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna. This is very advanced stuff, about devotional service. Krishna. Jambavan therefore said to the Lord, "My dear Lord, I can now understand who you are. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the source of everyone's strength, wealth, reputation, beauty, wisdom, and renunciation." This statement of Jambavan's is confirmed by Vedanta Sutra, wherein the Supreme Lord is declared to be the source of everything. Jambavan identified Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality, Lord Vishnu. My dear Lord, you are the creator of the creators of the universal affairs. This statement is very instructive to the ordinary man, who is amazed by the activities of a person with an exceptional brain. The ordinary man is surprised to see the inventions of a great scientist. But the statement of Jambavan confirms that although a scientist may be a creator of many things, wonderful things, Krishna is the creator of the scientist. He is not only the creator of one scientist, but of millions and trillions all over the universe. Jambavan then said further, "You are not only the creator of the creator, but you are also creator of the material elements which are manipulated by the so-called creators." Scientists utilize the physical elements or laws of material nature to do something wonderful. But actually, such laws and elements are also the creation of Krishna. This is actual scientific understanding. Less intelligent men do not try to understand who created the brain of the scientist. They are simply satisfied by seeing the wonderful creation or invention of the scientist. Jambavan continued, "My dear Lord, the time factor which combines all physical elements is also your representative. You are the supreme time factor in which all creation takes place, is maintained, and is finally annihilated, and not only the physical elements and the time factors, but also the persons who manipulate the ingredients and advantages of creation are part and parcel of you. The Supreme Lord is not, therefore, an independent creator. The living entity is not, therefore, did I say the Supreme Lord? I don't know. Hare Krishna. But the way the sentence reads, in case I misread it, is the living entity is not, therefore, an independent creator. By studying all factors in the right perspective, one can see that you are the supreme controller and Lord of everything. My dear Lord, I can understand, therefore, that you are the same Supreme Personality of Godhead whom I worship as Lord Ramachandra. My Lord Ramachandra wanted to construct a bridge over the ocean, and I saw personally how the ocean became agitated simply by my Lord's glancing over it, and when the whole ocean became agitated, the living entities like the whales, alligators, and timangilla fish all became perturbed. The timangilla fish in the ocean can swallow big aquatics like whales in one gulp. Timangilla fish swallows whales in one gulp. Hare Krishna. In this way, the ocean was forced to give way and allow. Don't be surprised if at some point in the not too distant future, scientists find the timangilla fish. In this way, the ocean was forced to give way and allow Ramachandra to cross the island known as Lanka, now supposed to be Ceylon. This construction of a bridge over the ocean from Cape Comorin to Ceylon is still well known to everyone. After the construction of the bridge, a fire was set all over the kingdom of Ravana. During the fighting with Ravana, each and every part of Ravana's limbs was slashed, cut into pieces by sharp arrows, and his head fell to the face of the earth. Now I can understand that you are none other than my Lord Ramachandra. No one else has such immeasurable strength. No one else could defeat me in this way. And then we'll find out what happens, because the Lord is very pleased by Jambavan's prayers, and he can now see the Lord. His anger is gone. He can see the Lord, and he's pleased the Lord with his fighting and being angry without even knowing that it was Krishna. What is that called? Agyata Sukriti. When you perform devotional service to Krishna, you don't even know you're doing it. And Krishna arranged it, so he would do that. Just like Krishna made that tricky arrangement for to have Kalyavana burnt to ashes by Muchikunda. Krishna led Kalyavana to the cave, and Kalyavana saw someone in there, and he thought it was Krishna. He kicked him and woke him up untimely, and Muchikunda burnt Kalyavana to ashes. Krishna never had to even deal with Kalyavana. And then he was able to deliver Muchikunda because Muchikunda could see Krishna. He pleased him by his service. So he took care of Kalyavana, but he did it Agyata Sukriti without knowing. But still Krishna was pleased by the service. It was Krishna's arrangement. So here also Krishna's arranged this, and Jambavan was fighting with Krishna, not even knowing that it was Krishna. But he was pleasing Krishna. And then he could see Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll find out next time now what happens when Krishna is pleased. Hare Krishna, Hare, next exciting episode of On the Way to Krishna. Krishna.